What would you do if the people you loved most became the ones who tried to destroy you? Today on Her Shattered Voices, you'll hear a story that will break your heart and test your faith in family. But before we begin, I want to know your voice too. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in her place? And if this story touches you even a little, don't forget to like this video so more people can hear her shattered voice. The realization that my own son and his wife were not merely ungrateful, not merely manipulative, but actively plotting to take away my independence, shook me to the very core. I sat in that chair for hours, my mind racing through every interaction we'd had over the last 5 years. Every cold glance from Nora, every time Michael avoided my calls, every excuse about being too busy. It all started to look different now. It wasn't just neglect. It wasn't just selfishness. It was a strategy. A long, carefully constructed strategy to make me look unstable, emotional, incapable of handling my own affairs. And the worst part? I had played right into their hands. After Robert's death, I had been grief-stricken. I did make impulsive financial gifts, giving away large checks to charities, over-tipping at restaurants, even buying Emma and Jake expensive gadgets without thinking twice. At the time, it felt like I was trying to fill the hole in my chest that grief had carved out. But now I saw it differently. To them, it had been evidence. To them, it was ammunition that I pressed my palms against my temples, whispering to myself, No, they won't take this from me. They won't take my life, my dignity, my freedom. For a brief moment, I thought of Robert. What would he say if he were here? He always told me, Dorothy, never let anyone make you small. You're sharper than most men in the room. I could almost hear his voice, firm but loving, and it gave me strength that I stood up, paced the living room, then went to my desk. I pulled out a fresh notebook and opened it. On the first page, in bold letters, I wrote, Plan. If they wanted to play games, fine. But they had forgotten who they were up against. I had built a life from nothing, managed Robert's business when he was too sick to handle it, navigated legal and financial storms bigger than anything Michael had ever faced. Did they really think I wouldn't notice their clumsy little theater? That night I barely slept. I sat awake, going over scenarios in my head. What if they tried to surprise me with an evaluation? What if they managed to convince a judge? How could I protect myself? How could I make sure their lies didn't stick? By sunrise, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning I called James Richardson. James, I said firmly, my voice steady now. I want you to schedule a complete mental competency evaluation with the best neuropsychologist in Manhattan. Dorothy, he replied gently, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. This is insulting. James, I interrupted, I do need to prove it. Not to myself but to the world. When this is over, I want documents signed by the top specialist in the field, stating in black and white that I am of sound mind and fully capable of handling my financial decisions. No one will be able to question me again. He sighed but finally agreed. Very well. I'll make the arrangements. When I hung up, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't reacting to them. I wasn't crying, I wasn't questioning myself. I was acting, and that made all the difference. But I wasn't done. I picked up the phone again and dialed Michael. He answered on the second ring. Mom? How are you feeling today? His voice was coated with fake cheerfulness, the kind that had started to grate on me. Actually, Michael, I said smoothly, I've been doing some thinking about our conversation. Oh, and I've decided you're right. There was a pause. Right about what? About resuming the financial arrangements. I realize I've been too harsh, too emotional. I miss our family dinners. I miss being part of your lives. I want to fix this. The relief in his voice was immediate, palpable. Mom, that's wonderful. I knew you'd come around. You've always been such a loving, generous person. I want us all to have dinner this Friday. Everyone, including Emma and Jake. I want to apologize properly and discuss how we move forward. Of course, he said eagerly. Nora will be so relieved. She's been worried sick about you. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I'll bet she has. The moment I hung up, I made my third call. This time to a name I hadn't spoken in years, Patricia Chan, a private investigator James had once recommended. She had handled Robert's business disputes with ruthless efficiency. When she answered, I didn't waste time. Patricia, I need a full financial investigation into my son Michael and his wife Nora. Bank accounts, credit cards, debts, assets, spending patterns. And I also want to know if they've been consulting with any attorneys recently. Something is off about their behavior. Patricia didn't ask unnecessary questions. Consider it done, Mrs. Patterson. I'll have a report for you by Thursday. When Thursday morning came, I opened the thick envelope Patricia delivered, and my suspicions were confirmed. In fact, they were worse than I had ever imagined. Michael and Nora were drowning in debt. Beyond the money I had been giving them, they had maxed out credit cards, taken out loans, even a second mortgage on the house. Nora's shopping addiction was worse than I knew. Designer clothes, handbags, vacations they couldn't afford. They were behind on Jake's tuition payments. But one detail stood out above all. A secret bank account. An account where they had been depositing and then withdrawing large sums of money over the past 2 years. My money. Money I had given them for bills, for the children, for emergencies. They hadn't used it directly for expenses. They had funneled it through this separate account, like laundering it before paying anything. Why would they do that? The answer came in the second half of Patricia's report. Documents. Financial planning documents showing they had been working with a lawyer to establish guardianship over my assets. They had started right after Robert's death, back when I was vulnerable, back when I made those large impulsive gifts. 5 years. For 5 years they had been planning this. The distance, the manipulation, the casual cruelty, it was all part of their narrative. The unstable widow who couldn't be trusted with her fortune. The generous but foolish mother who needed protection. My hands clenched the paper so tightly they nearly tore. I had thought I was teaching them a lesson in gratitude. In reality, they had been weaving a trap for me all along. But now the game was changing. By Friday evening, I was ready. I walked into Michael and Nora's house for dinner, carrying not just my purse, but the weight of every secret I had uncovered. The dining room was set like a stage, good china, candles, everything sparkling. Emma and Jake seemed genuinely happy to see me, their innocence the only light in the room. "Mom, you look wonderful," Nora gushed, though her smile never touched her eyes. "Thank you, dear. You look lovely as always," I replied smoothly, my mask firmly in place. Michael raised his wine glass. "To family, to forgiveness, and to Mom, the most generous, loving woman we know." We went through dinner as if everything were normal. They laughed at my stories, complimented my jewelry, asked about my health. It was a masterful performance. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed it myself. But I did know, and that changed everything. After dessert, I stood up slowly. "I have something to say." Michael and Nora leaned forward eagerly, expecting my tearful apology, expecting me to announce their financial lifeline was restored. Their eyes sparkled with greed, with anticipation. "These past 2 weeks have been enlightening," I began. "Michael, your sudden interest in my daily health has been touching. Nora, your invitation to go shopping was thoughtful. And children, your letters and phone calls have meant the world to me." They beamed, certain the trap had worked. "It's made me realize how important it is to be truly involved in each other's lives. Which is why I've decided to be much more involved in managing all of our affairs. I met with James Richardson yesterday to review the family trust documents." Nora's smile flickered. "I also had a complete psychological evaluation done. Clean bill of mental health." Michael's face went pale. "And," I continued, reaching into my purse, "I hired a private investigator. She did a very thorough financial review." I set the thick report down on the table with a thud. The silence was suffocating. "Did you know," I said calmly, "that it's illegal to establish financial guardianship over someone through fraudulent means? James was quite concerned when he reviewed your planning documents." Nora shot to her feet. "I don't know what you think you found. I found 5 years of evidence," I cut her off, "that you've been systematically setting me up to be declared incompetent. The secret bank account, the guardianship paperwork, the witnesses you've been cultivating to testify about my erratic behavior." Michael's voice was a whisper. "Mom, it's not what it looks like. Because it looks like fraud. It looks like elder abuse. It looks like 2 people who decided it was easier to steal from me than to earn their own living." Emma and Jake sat frozen, horror written on their faces. "Here's what's going to happen," I said coldly. "You're going to pack up and move out of this house by the end of the month. The house I bought, by the way, which means I can evict you whenever I choose. You're going to get jobs. Real jobs. And if you ever attempt to contact me again, I'll file criminal charges. James assures me we have more than enough evidence. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. I'm changing my will. The entire estate goes to charity now. Congratulations, Michael. Your greed just cost you $47 million. The same $47 million you thought you could steal. And with that, I left. The drive home was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt free. My heart was broken, yes, but it was no longer chained by manipulation, no longer held hostage by lies. Some lessons are expensive, but watching my son learn that respect is not optional, that was worth every penny. When I closed the door of Michael's house that night, I thought the story had ended. I thought I had finally won, finally broken free from their grip. But life doesn't wrap itself neatly in one evening's confrontation. The truth is, betrayal doesn't vanish when you expose it. It lingers. It spreads like smoke, seeping into every crack of your heart. And as I drove back to my home, the silence wasn't peace. It was a heavy reminder that my son, my flesh and blood, had chosen greed over love. The first few days afterward, I tried to convince myself that I had done the right thing. I repeated it like a mantra: they were going to destroy you. They deserved this. You had no choice. But late at night, when the house was still, doubt would creep in. Was I too harsh? Was there some corner of Michael's heart that still loved me, buried under Nora's influence? Had I burned the last bridge with my only child? I'd sit by the window, looking out at the city lights, clutching Robert's old cardigan around my shoulders. He had been my compass, my steady anchor. Without him, I felt like a ship cut loose, drifting in dark waters. My children had been my second anchor. And now, that anchor was gone too. But grief, when faced head-on, often transforms into clarity. By the end of the week, I knew that sitting in my living room, replaying conversations and wondering what ifs, would destroy me faster than Michael ever could. If my son had chosen greed, then I would choose something else. I would choose legacy. That morning I called James again. I want to rewrite everything. I told him that. He sounded hesitant. Dorothy, we've already secured your will, your trust. What more do you need? I don't want to just protect what I have, James. I want to use it. I want to make it matter. If Michael and Nora can't understand the value of hard work, of empathy, of respect, then maybe someone else can. I don't want my life to end as just another story of a wealthy woman cheated by her family. I want to leave behind something that means more than money. James was quiet for a moment, then he said, "What exactly are you thinking?" And so I told him. The Patterson Foundation.it would be a nonprofit built on Robert's values and mine: scholarships for underprivileged children, housing programs for single mothers, medical support for families in crisis. Real tangible help. If Michael had tried to weaponize my wealth, then I would weaponize it back, but not for destruction. For creation. For hope. The next month was a whirlwind. My days were filled with meetings, lawyers, financial advisors, nonprofit consultants, even architects for the foundation headquarters. I found myself waking up earlier, energized in a way I hadn't been in years. Every document I signed, every plan we drew up, felt like another brick in the fortress I was building, not just to protect myself, but to ensure that my story ended the way I chose, not the way Michael had scripted. But while I was building, Michael was crumbling. Patricia, the private investigator, continued sending me updates. Michael and Nora had moved into a small rental on the outskirts of town after leaving the house I owned. Michael had lost his job, unable to explain away the sudden financial scandal that followed him when whispers of elder abuse reached his company. Nora, stripped of her shopping sprees and dinner parties, had turned cold, resentful. They were fighting constantly, their marriage unraveling under the same greed that had once united them. One evening, Patricia called with a tone I had never heard in her voice before. Something between pity and disgust. "Dorothy, you should know. Michael came to see me today." My heart sank. What did he want? "He begged me to convince you to reconsider. Said he was desperate. Said he made mistakes, but that he's still your son." Patricia paused. I told him it wasn't my place. But Dorothy, he looked broken. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time. My son. My only son. Broken not by my hand but by his own choices. Still, the image of him desperate, begging, gnawed at me. Could I truly walk away forever? That Friday I decided to test the waters. I asked Emma and Jake to meet me for lunch. Just the three of us, no Michael, no Nora. When they arrived, I saw the relief in their eyes. They were older now, teenagers with their own opinions, and they had seen more than I realized. Over sandwiches and iced tea, Emma finally spoke. Grandma, we know what happened. Dad and Mom talk louder than they think. And we're sorry. For everything. Jake nodded, his young voice trembling. We don't want to be like them. We don't want to lose you. Tears welled in my eyes. You won't, I promised. You will always have me. Always. It was then that I knew. My son may have betrayed me, but my grandchildren had not. They were still salvageable. They were still good. And maybe, just maybe, I could guide them toward a different path. The weeks that followed became a delicate dance. I allowed Emma and Jake to visit me often, helping them with homework, teaching them to cook Robert's favorite recipes, telling them stories about resilience, about honor, about what it means to stand tall even when the world pushes you down. I saw sparks in them, curiosity, integrity that gave me hope. But Michael noticed, and he did not approve. One evening, he showed up at my door. His face was gaunt, his eyes tired. He didn't knock gently. He pounded like a man demanding entry into a kingdom he thought was his by right. When I opened the door, he looked at me with a mix of anger and desperation. Mom, what are you doing? Filling their heads with lies? Turning them against me? I stared at him, calm but unyielding. I don't need to turn them against you, Michael. They see the truth for themselves. His voice broke. You think you're so righteous. But you don't understand what it's like. To feel like you're always second best. To live in Robert's shadow. To watch you pour love into everyone else while I was left to scrape for scraps. For a moment his words pierced me. Was that truly how he had felt all these years? Had I been blind to his pain while trying to give him everything? But then I remembered the bank accounts. The lies. The calculated betrayal. Pain might explain his choices, but it did not excuse them. I lifted my chin. Michael, I loved you more than you will ever know. I gave you everything I could. But love is not an excuse to destroy. And you destroyed the one thing you cannot buy back, trust. He looked at me for a long time, his jaw trembling, his eyes wet. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. That was the last time he came to my door. Months passed. The foundation launched, scholarships were awarded, families were housed, lives were changed. My name, once whispered in gossip circles as the poor widow being manipulated by her son, became a symbol of strength, of reinvention. And through it all, Emma and Jake stood by my side, learning, growing, becoming the kind of people I had always hoped my family would be. And Michael? He faded into the background. A man consumed by his own choices, swallowed by the shadow of the life he could have had if he had chosen love instead of greed. Sometimes, late at night, I still think of him. I wonder if he regrets it, if he lies awake wishing he had chosen differently. I wonder if he hates me or if he hates himself more. I don't know. Maybe I never will, but I do know this. I may have lost a son, but I did not lose myself. I stood tall. I fought back.
It chose dignity over despair, legacy over manipulation.
And in doing so, I discovered that the greatest revenge is not punishment. It's building something so powerful, so enduring that no betrayal can ever erase it. And that became the final chapter of my story. The launch of the Patterson Foundation was supposed to be the happy ending. The newspapers wrote glowing articles, the mayor gave a speech, donors lined up to shake my hand. Cameras flashed as Emma and Jake stood proudly beside me, their young faces radiant with pride. I smiled, I waved, I delivered a carefully written speech about legacy and compassion. But behind every word, every practiced smile, there was still a hollow ache. Because while the world celebrated, my heart kept asking one question. Where was Michael? It's a strange thing to love someone who has hurt you. The mind tells you to forget, to erase, to protect yourself. But the heart is stubborn. It clings to memories, to fragments of laughter and warmth, even when the present is poisoned. And so, even as I built schools and funded hospitals, I found myself scanning every crowd, hoping to see his face. I told myself I was strong without him, and I was, but part of me still longed for the son I used to know. Then came the letter. It arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, slipped through my mail slot without ceremony. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, as if written in haste or desperation. I almost didn't open it. My mornings were filled with foundation paperwork, but something about the envelope tugged at me. When I tore it open, the words inside stopped my breath. Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I ruined everything. But please, I'm not well. Nora's gone. I have nothing. I don't know where else to turn. Please, if you have even a shred of love left for me, meet me at the old train station. Tonight. The old train station. That place had history. It was where Robert and I had once taken Michael to watch the trains when he was small, back when money was tight and entertainment was simple. He had loved it, sitting on Robert's shoulders, waving at strangers through the windows. It wasn't just a meeting place. It was a memory. I sat with the letter for hours, torn in two. On one side, anger, caution, the voice of Patricia in my head warning me not to give him another chance. On the other, the relentless pull of motherhood, the part of me that would always see him as that little boy waving at trains. In the end, my heart won. That evening, I drove to the station. The building was abandoned now, its paint peeling, its once grand arches darkened with soot and time. A cold wind swept through the empty platforms as I stepped inside, clutching my coat tighter. And there he was. Michael. He looked nothing like the man who had once demanded control of my wealth. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes sunken. He was thinner, almost frail, his shoulders slumped as though carrying a weight too heavy to bear. When he saw me, he didn't smile, didn't run to embrace me. He just lowered his head, ashamed. Mom, he whispered, his voice cracking. For a long moment I said nothing. My throat was tight, my emotions warring. Finally I managed, Why now, Michael? Why here? He swallowed hard. Because I have nothing left. Nora left me 2 months ago. Took what little money we had and ran. I lost my job, my friends, everything. And I know it's my fault.
I lied, I manipulated, I hurt you.
I thought money would fill the hole inside me, but it only made it deeper. And now, he broke off, his hands trembling. Now I'm sick. The words slammed into me. Sick? What do you mean? He lifted his eyes then, and I saw the truth in them, fear. Real raw fear. The doctors say it's my liver. Years of stress, drinking, bad choices, it's failing me. I don't have long without a transplant. And I have no one. No one but you. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. My son, the betrayer, the thief, the man who had tried to strip me of everything I had, was now begging for my help. Not for money. For life itself. I felt my knees weaken, and I gripped the railing of the platform to steady myself. Part of me screamed, this is justice. This is the universe giving him what he deserves. But another part, louder, fiercer, screamed back, he is your child. He is still your child. I looked at him, tears blurring my vision. Why should I believe you this time, Michael? Why should I think this isn't another manipulation? He shook his head violently. Because I don't have the strength to lie anymore. Look at me. I'm broken. I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for a chance to live, to make things right, to be your son again. The station was silent but for the distant hum of a passing freight train. My heart pounded in my chest, torn between betrayal and blood, between memory and reality. Finally I whispered, I need time. He nodded, his shoulders slumping in relief at even that small mercy. Please don't take too long. I walked away that night with the letter still in my hand, but my mind was a storm. Could I trust him? Should I save him? Or was this one last cruel trick? Back at home, I placed the letter on Robert's old desk and stared at his photograph. What would you do? I asked the silent frame, but of course no answer came. Only my own heart breaking all over again. The night after the meeting at the train station, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face, drawn, pale, desperate. The way his hands trembled when he admitted his sickness. The way his voice cracked when he said he had no one else. My heart ached with memories of him as a little boy, running down the hallway in his pajamas, clutching his stuffed bear. But then another image would slam into me. The coldness in his eyes when he plotted against me. The false sweetness when he tried to manipulate me into signing away everything I had. How could the same person be both? My baby and my betrayer. My only son and my greatest wound that I spent the morning pacing the length of my living room. Patricia called, updating me on some minor foundation matters, but I barely heard her. My mind was elsewhere, circling the same impossible question. Should I help him? I pulled out Michael's letter again, tracing the shaky handwriting with my fingers. It didn't feel rehearsed. Didn't feel coached. It felt raw, almost childlike in its plea. But hadn't I been fooled before? How many times had I mistaken performance for sincerity? I remembered the flowers, the scripted phone calls, the fake concern, all carefully staged to paint me as irrational while they built their fraudulent case. Could this letter be another stage in that same cruel play? But then, I remembered the way his voice shook when he said, "I'm sick." I had raised that boy. I knew his tones, his habits, his lies. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure I'd heard a lie. I called James Richardson, my lawyer, hoping for clarity. "James," I said, "if Michael is truly ill, if he needs a transplant, what happens if I help him?" James was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Dorothy, this isn't a legal question. It's a personal one. Legally, you owe him nothing. After what he tried to do, no one would fault you for walking away. But morally, that's between you, him, and your conscience." His words did nothing to quiet the storm inside me. By afternoon, I found myself driving. I hadn't planned where to go, but my car seemed to know. It carried me back to the old neighborhood, past the park where Michael once played soccer, past the school where I had attended every recital, every parent-teacher conference. The memories hit like waves, relentless and cruel. I pulled over by the playground, watching children run and laugh, and I saw him there again, a little boy in a red sweater waving at me from the swings. My Michael. Before the greed, before the manipulation, before Nora sank her claws in, tears blurred my vision. Could I really let that little boy die inside the broken man he had become? That evening, I picked up the phone and called him. His voice on the other end was weak, almost fragile. "Mom, it's me," I said softly. "I've been thinking. I'll go with you to the doctor. We'll find out exactly what's wrong." For a moment there was only silence. Then a sob broke through, raw and unguarded. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you. You don't know what this means to me." I closed my eyes. "Don't thank me yet. This doesn't erase the past. But if there's a chance you truly want to change, then I have to see it through." The next day, I accompanied Michael to the hospital. Sitting in that sterile white room, I listened as the doctor explained the severity of his condition. His liver was failing fast. Without a transplant, he had less than a year. With one, maybe more, but only if he changed everything about his life. No more drinking, no more reckless habits. Total commitment to health. Michael sat quietly, nodding, his face pale. I watched him, searching for signs of deceit, but all I saw was fear. Pure human fear. When the doctor left, he turned to me, tears brimming in his eyes. "Mom, I don't deserve this chance. But I swear to you, if I get it, I'll make it right. I'll prove I can be better." I wanted to believe him. Oh, how desperately I wanted to believe him. But belief was dangerous. Belief had almost cost me everything before. That night, back at my house, I poured myself a glass of tea and sat in silence. The walls seemed to whisper with Robert's absence, the air heavy with the weight of decision. Was this redemption or just another trap? I thought of Emma and Jake. They didn't deserve to lose their father. They didn't deserve to carry the burden of his sins. If I walked away, I wouldn't just be punishing Michael, I'd be punishing them. And despite everything, I still loved them with all my heart, so I made a choice. The next morning I called Patricia. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "I need every detail about the transplant process. Risks, timelines, everything. And find out if I'm a match." Patricia hesitated. "Dorothy, are you saying?" "Yes," I whispered. "If it comes down to it, I need to know." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Because in that moment I realized the truth. I was willing to risk everything. My safety, my peace, even my life. For a son who had betrayed me in the worst ways. And that terrified me more than anything else. The hospital waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and fear. I sat in one of those stiff plastic chairs, my fingers clenched around the armrests as though holding on for balance. Patricia had already arranged everything, quietly, discreetly. A simple blood test, a small sample, but the weight of it pressed down on me like 1,000 stones. If the results came back positive, if I was a match, then the decision would no longer be abstract. It would be flesh and blood. My flesh. My blood. Michael sat across from me, his hands folded in his lap. He didn't look at me much. His face was drawn, his eyes hollow, as if shame itself had carved away the man he used to be. He whispered occasionally little fragments like, "Thank you for coming," or, "I'm sorry for everything." I nodded but said little, because words felt fragile in that room. The nurse finally called my name. I rose, my legs unsteady. The blood draw was quick, just a prick, a vial, a bandage. But when the nurse said the results would take a few days, my chest tightened. Few days. A few days of waiting, of questioning, of torment. Back at home, I tried to distract myself with foundation work, with meetings, with endless paperwork. But every time I signed my name, every time I approved a grant, my mind whispered, what if you're the match? What then? The third night after the test, I dreamed of Robert. He was standing at the old train station, holding Michael's hand. Michael was small again, just a boy with bright eyes and a laugh that filled the air. Robert looked at me and said, "He's still ours, Dorothy, even when he's broken." I woke with tears streaming down my face, my pillow damped. On the fourth day, Patricia called. Her voice was careful, too careful. "Dorothy, you're a match." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My knees buckled and I sank into the nearest chair. "A match," I whispered. "Yes," she said softly. "You're compatible. If you choose, you can donate. If you choose." Those words echoed like a curse. That evening, I sat across from Michael at my dining table. He looked smaller, somehow fragile. I slid the paper across to him, the confirmation of compatibility. His hand shook as he read it. Tears spilled down his cheeks. "Mom, I don't deserve this. But please, please don't give up on me now." My throat burned. "Do you understand what you're asking of me? After everything, after trying to steal my life, my name, my sanity, you're asking me to cut into my own body to save yours." He bowed his head. "I know, and I wish I could take it all back. I was blind, selfish, poisoned by greed. But I swear to you, Mom, if you give me this chance, I will never hurt you again. I'll live differently. For Emma. For Jake. For you." I studied him, searching his face for the familiar mask of manipulation. But what I saw was raw, unfiltered desperation. He wasn't pretending. He couldn't, not now. The room was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. Finally, I whispered, "If I do this, it's not because I forgive you. It's because Emma and Jake deserve a father. And because no mother, no matter how betrayed, can fully cut the cord to her child." His sob filled the room, broken and childlike. He reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. "Don't mistake this for reconciliation, Michael. You'll have to earn that, every single day for the rest of your life." The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Those days blurred together. A haze of hospital visits, legal consultations, and whispered prayers in the quiet of my empty house. Patricia urged caution, James reminded me to secure my will, but my heart was already set. The morning of the operation, I lay on the gurney, fluorescent lights glaring overhead. Michael was in another room being prepped. A nurse adjusted my her voice gentle. "You're doing something incredibly brave." I closed my eyes. Brave? Or foolish? Maybe both. That as the anesthesia pulled me under, my last thought was of Robert's dream voice whispering, "He's still ours." When I woke, everything was blurred, voices, beeping machines, the dull ache in my side. But one thing cut through the haze, Michael's face. He was sitting by my bed, pale and weak but alive. His eyes were red with tears. "You did it," he whispered. "Mom, you saved me." I wanted to speak, to tell him not to waste this chance, but exhaustion dragged me back into sleep. In the days that followed, as we both recovered, something strange happened. Michael changed. He was gentler, quieter, almost reverent. He fetched water for me, fluffed my pillows, sat by my side for hours without asking for anything. For the first time in years, he wasn't taking. He was giving. And yet, deep inside, a seed of doubt remained. Could a man like Michael truly change? Or was this just another performance born of gratitude and fear that would fade once strength returned? Only time would tell. The days of recovery blurred into weeks, the quiet of the hospital room replaced by the stillness of my own home. I walked slowly now, one hand pressed to my side where the surgeons had taken what they needed. My body was weaker, but my heart carried a weight I could not set down. I had given life twice to the same son, once in birth and now again through blood. And yet I asked myself each night, would he honor it or would he squander it? Michael came often. He would knock softly, as if afraid to disturb me, then step inside carrying groceries or flowers Emma had picked from their small yard. He moved carefully, as though every action was an apology. Sometimes he would sit in silence, just watching me as though studying a language he had never learned. Other times he spoke of Jake's school projects, Emma's laughter, the small details of ordinary life that once he had ignored. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, he finally asked the question that had lingered between us like smoke. Do you hate me, Mom? I looked at him for a long time. His face was thinner now, his eyes clearer. The arrogance, the entitlement, they had been burned away in the fire of sickness. What was left was raw humanity. I don't know if hate is the word, I said softly. I hate what you did. I hate the years you stole from me with your greed. But you're still my son. That bond is not so easily severed. His voice broke. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve what you gave me. Then prove it, I whispered. Live in a way that makes it mean something. Be the father Emma and Jake need. Be the man Robert wanted you to be. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. For once I believed him. The months passed. Slowly, painfully, trust began to knit itself back together. Not a seamless cloth, but a patchwork quilt stitched with effort and time. Michael found work, honest work. He showed up for his children's lives, for Emma's dance recitals and Jake's science fair. And when he faltered, when old habits whispered in his ear, he came to me, ashamed but willing to admit weakness. That was new. That was growth. Yet I never let myself forget the past entirely. A mother forgives, but she does not forget. The scar across my side was a daily reminder of both sacrifice and betrayal. One autumn afternoon, I visited Robert's grave. The trees shed their leaves in a fiery cascade, the air crisp and sharp. Michael stood beside me, Emma holding his hand, Jake clutching mine. Together we stood in silence. Michael's lips moved in a prayer I could not hear. When he looked at me afterward, there was something different in his eyes. Not the boy I raised, not the man who betrayed me, but someone new. Someone forged in suffering and given a second chance. Thank you, he whispered, his voice steady. For saving my life. For not giving up on me when you had every reason to. I touched his cheek, my hand trembling. Don't thank me, Michael. Thank the time you've been given. And don't waste it. As we walked back to the car, Emma skipped ahead, Jake chasing after her. Michael lingered beside me. He slipped his arm gently through mine, tentative like a boy once more. I let him. For the first time in years, I let him. Because sometimes love is not about forgetting the pain. It's about carrying it, scars and all, and still choosing to hope. And as the wind carried the last of the autumn leaves across the path, I realized something. My son had nearly destroyed me, but he had also given me a chance to discover the depths of my own strength. In saving him, perhaps I had saved myself too. My son once texted me, "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all." And for a moment I thought my story with him was over. But life has a way of testing not just our patience but the depth of our love. I gave him life twice, and in saving him I found pieces of myself I thought I'd lost forever. So if you're listening right now, remember this. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who also teach us what forgiveness truly costs. The question is, would you pay that price?